Today we're talking about how to properly maintain and sharpen chains. The first thing you need to do when determining to sharpen your chain is to identify the chain type that you have. The chain type you have is going to determine the file sizes and the angles you file to. When you purchase a new chain, the packaging that comes with it will identify the chain type, the tools you will need, and the angles that it will be filed to. A lot of the time, the owner's manual for your saw will also have that information in it. You can also find that information online at OregonProducts.com. There are several different methods and ideas on how to properly maintain chain, but we're going to do the way we recommend it. So the first thing like I said, you're going to need to do is identify the chain, all the proper tools. You're going to need a round file. You're going to need a file guide. You're also going to need a flat file and the proper tools to set the depth gauges, or which are sometimes referred to as rakers and drags. Some chains recommendations are different than others, but for this particular example, we're going to use depth gauge settings of 25 thousandths of an inch. All right? So some of the things you need to consider before you sharpen your chain is the chain damaged? Did you hit a rock? Did you hit a nail? Did you get it in the dirt? Or is it just dull from use? If it's been damaged, you need to look at the chain. Identify that cutter that has the most damage in it. That's the cutter you're going to want to file first until you removed all of that damage. A really good way to remove the damage and make sure the cutters are the same length is by counting the number of strokes. This is just going to be a baseline. Everybody files one hand slightly different than they do the other. And when I say that, I mean from the left-hand cutters to the right-hand cutters. So you can count your strokes, which will help you keep the cutter lengths balanced throughout the loop. When you've started, you're always going to remember to file from the inside of the cutters to the outside of the cutters. This is so that you're not running your file against the chrome. The chrome on the outside of the cutters is actually harder than the file, so you're going to wear out files fairly quickly trying to file from the outside to the inside. You'll also notice that filing from the inside to the outside is easier. It's easier to line up the marks on your file guide, and it's easier to put the file through the stroke. So let's see what that looks like. On my guide, there's several marks for different types of cutters. But what I'm looking for this particular chain is 25 degrees, the angle across the top of the cutter. So I'm going to set my tool in the cutter. I'm going to have 2 points of contact. One on top of the cutter and two on top of the depth gauge. This is important. This maintains the relationship of 80-20. That's what we refer to as 80-20. That means 80% of the file is down inside the cutter and 20% is above. That's going to maintain the hook on the side plate or the side of the cutter that's important to fast, efficient cutting. So once you got that set, you want to keep your file flat. You don't want to drop the handle down or raise the tip up. If you drop the handle down too far, it's going to change how the cutter performs, and it's not going to perform as well. So keep that flat. Make a nice even stroke all the way through the cutter, counting how many strokes it takes to sharpen it. Once you've removed all the damage, repeat that step for every cutter in the loop. It's also a good opportunity for you to practice. It takes some practice to be good at hand filing. Some people can just simply flip the file back around and sharpen the other hands. Some people have to change their position in relationship to the saw. So it's just going to be a matter of practice and finding which method works the best for you. Once you've got the entire loop sharpened, then you're going to take your flat file and a depth gauge tool, whether it be a drop center or a drop end. That's personal preference. For my example, I'm going to use the drop center. You're going to want to take your tool, set it over your cutter so that the cutter you just sharpened is not exposed. The only thing sticking out is the depth gauge. You want to have 2 points of contact. And again, with the flat file, you want to file from the inside out. So you want to run that file across the top of the depth gauges until the file has removed that material. Once it's removed the material, the file will slide across the tool because the tool is harder than the file. Once all those have been set, your chain is now sharp, the depth gauges are set correctly, and you're ready to go back to work. For further details, please go to OregonProducts.com.